Hi, I'm Meryem. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm going to start with a pretty controversial statement. Within the next 10 years, the first thing to read any piece of text in your business won't be human. The first eyes that will read that text will be AI. And that's a pretty bold claim, and 10 years really isn't that long. But I think we're on the precipice of something really, really exciting that's going to fundamentally change the way that we interact with unstructured data in our businesses. I'm Meryem. I'm the co-founder and CEO of TitanML. And I'm a firm believer in the potential of AI, not just for productivity gains, like we've talked about a lot today, but also for elevating human creativity and potential as well. And today, I want to talk to you about how we get to the position of having AI everywhere. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to firstly justify this pretty outlandish claim that we're going to have AI reading all of our text before humans. I'm then going to talk about what kind of capabilities you need to be able to build that kind of differentiated AI everywhere. And then finally, I'm not just going to leave it pie in the sky. I'm going to actually talk about how we can get started today and get started with building these AI capabilities. So let's start with envisioning AI everywhere. So why do I think we're going to have AI read all of the text in our orgs before people do? And to talk about this, I want to talk about the different types of data that we have in our organizations. So you may or may not know that between 80 and 90% of the data within your organizations is unstructured data. And for those of you who don't know the difference between structured and unstructured data, it's probably best to think about unstructured data in contrast to structured data. So structured data is essentially anything that you can represent in a chart or a graph. It's stored in your databases. And in fact, if you're using Dataiku, it's probably the reason you purchased Dataiku to begin with. Most analytics work is done with structured data. But unstructured data is actually the majority of the information and data that you have in your organization. It's all of the text, images, reports, emails, contracts, social media feeds that you have. And this is by far the biggest source of data that we have. So let's think about how we analyze that data. Well, for structured data, we're really, really good at analyzing it. We have a bunch of tools at our disposal. We probably a lot of the functionalities you use within Dataiku help you analyze this structured data. But with unstructured data, we're leaving a lot on the table. Essentially, the only way that we have of analyzing this unstructured data is manual processing. You leave it up to a human to draw the connection between a report they read a month ago with something they've seen today with a conversation they had last week. And that is fine, but that's a lot of data, and that leads to slow analysis and also a lot of missed information. We just simply don't have enough people to be able to comprehensively understand all of this information. But fortunately, the current generation of AI is really good at processing this kind of unstructured data. So what I see coming down the line in not too long is that AI will be the first eyes to see all of our information, and then we'll flag to the human what's really relevant to look at. So we can spend our human time doing the most interesting things and picking up on those causations. So hopefully I've justified that we're going to have AI pretty much everywhere within our orgs. Maybe it's now worth thinking about what does it mean to have differentiated AI absolutely everywhere. And when I think about differentiated AI, what I want to focus on in this little bit is where are we getting that data from? And how can we link that with all of the applications that we need to build that Kurt mentioned earlier? So there's broadly two ways that you can access your AI. And they're going to be useful for different purposes. So the first way is you essentially use API-hosted models. This is actually where the majority of people are building their POCs. So you have your application is hosted within your organization, but the AI part is hosted separately. The models are hosted on someone else's compute, in someone else's cloud, and you send data and queries and get responses. The other way is you can self-host these models. So you can take one of the great open source models. In fact, we're now at a point where the open source models are pretty much on par with the API ones, and deploy it within your own environment and within your own compute resources. And you need to figure out what the trade-offs are between these so you can figure out how you're going to build all of those applications you need to. So we need to pick the right tools for the right job. So for the API-hosted models, there's a lot of benefits to them. The biggest benefit is that they're really easy to work with. It's literally just as easy as writing an API, and suddenly you have magical AI returning back to you. Secondly, you get access to proprietary models, which in some cases, for some use cases, might be better than what you can get for open source. And also, at very small scale, it's much cheaper. So you're only paying by the token. If you're just testing it out, then it's much, much cheaper. But the main reason why people want to self-host is largely because of control. So I can have my secure AI for my private data because it's in my environment. I don't have any dependencies on third parties. So if OpenAI fires their CEO again, then I'm completely fine. And it's cloud portable as well. So if you have a multi-cloud strategy or you're on-prem, super easy to pick up and move. Also, it's much more scalable, and it's much more customizable as well. I actually spoke to someone in the break who said that at scale, they accidentally spent about $10,000 on API-hosted models. When you're self-hosting, it's much, much cheaper at scale, and then the customizability, you can fine-tune it with your own data. And so we need to pick the right tools for the right jobs. And I'm going to steal Kurt's slide from earlier, because it was a very, very good slide. Thank you very much. And go back to all of the things that we think we're probably going to need to build over the next 10 years or so. We need to figure out, these are all of our applications. Maybe we're not going to need all of them, but some of them we're going to build for that differentiated AI. And we need to pick the right tool for the right job based on those pros and cons I talked about just earlier. So for some of these applications that I've decided are really strategically important, I will need to use self-hosted models because of control. For example, with M&A data, that's so sensitive that I probably just want it on that box that I can see right there. Some of them I'll have to self-host because of performance and customizability reasons. I can think about, for example, for molecule discovery, it's such a niche topic that actually you might need to be fine-tuning your own model. There are some that you might need to self-host because of scalability reasons. Maybe the scale you're going to deploy them at would just be way too expensive for you to API host. Some might be a hybrid. So this is actually typically how you get best performance, is maybe you'll have some models, like your embedding models, self-hosted, and then some you're using API-based. Some you use API, and then the rest, we don't care about enough to be differentiated, so maybe we'll just use a SaaS. So not only do we need to think about which aspects of our business are going to be our areas of differentiation, we also need to think about, given that they're our area of differentiation, how do we go about building them? And this is why about 82% of enterprises are currently building self-hosting capabilities, because they know that for a lot of the use cases that are going to be really differentiated, they're going to be needing to either self-host or have a hybrid solution. So these self-hosted capabilities are really essential for this AI everywhere. But you do need significant expertise to be able to work with them. They're less easy to work with than API-based models. And it's more infrastructure that you need to build and maintain. So I'm going to talk very briefly about how we can actually get started today. I've already talked that we're going to have AI everywhere. Some of that is going to be differentiated, and some of those we're going to need to self-host. So how can we build up those self-hosting capabilities? Well, that's actually what I spend all of my time doing at TitanML. We provide a platform, a software platform, to be able to self-host these language models. So we start with your secure environment. We don't have a cloud, have no intention of having a cloud. We then deploy all of the software infrastructure that you need to be able to self-host and inference these models at scale, all within your control. We can deploy whatever model it is that we care about, not just the LLMs, but also the vision models and the table parsers and the embedding models. And then finally, we interact with it through a simple API that developers can work with as easily as they work with the OpenAI API. And why am I here today, and why am I wearing this completely ridiculous scarf? Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dataiku. It's because we're really excited to announce that as of about 2 weeks ago, we're now an available plugin within the Dataiku LLM mesh. So you can deploy in your secure environment and use all of the fantastic tools that you get with Dataiku, like the cost guards, et cetera, et cetera. But you can use the TitanML layer to self-host your models. So you can have that choice of actually whether you self-host or use an API completely interoperably. So we're going to have differentiated AI everywhere. And I can guarantee for certain you're going to have these 3 different ways of building it within your org. If you just applications that are really easy, you'll use APIs. If you want the highest performance, you'll probably have a hybrid. And for your most private data, you'll want to self-host totally. And we're really excited to be the option that powers the hybrid and self-hosted options. So I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to be around all day if you want to chat. And also, I'd love to connect on LinkedIn as well. And thank you so much for listening, guys.